Hello, everyone. We hope you're staying safe and healthy. Today, we are joined with Isha. She successfully transitioned to living a more sustainable lifestyle and has been documenting and educating people on her journey and Indian culture through lectures, articles, and social media posts. With the negative impact of fast fashion and overconsumption, it has made an impact on the environment and human rights. It is important that all of us try our best to switch to a more sustainable lifestyle. We hope from this interview you can take away a few tips on living a sustainable lifestyle and a deeper understanding of the negative impacts of the status quo. So, Isha, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so basically, I'm from India, from a historical city called Lucknow in North India, which is close to Delhi. And I was born and brought up in Lucknow, and I am basically a trained jewelry designer. So I have trained to be a designer of jewels, particularly precious jewels. And that's been my area of work for about a decade. But I've also taught at design schools, and because this course was at a fashion school, so of course there has been a direct connection with fashion, and jewelry in itself is also a part of the fashion industry. So I've been a part of it, and I've been somebody who thinks about it. And about 3 years ago, I started an Instagram page, and there I started talking about Indian fashion and Indian crafts, and gradually it moved on towards sustainable and slow fashion. So that's a brief about me.
Awesome. What motivated you to switch your lifestyle to sustainable living?
See, I'd like to say that in India, traditionally, most of us have had inherently sustainable lifestyles. So, barring the urban population, most of the rural population in India, which is the majority, and the middle classes and the levels below the middle class, all of those people still to a great extent live sustainable lives. And a big reason behind that is that we are not a rich country. So we cannot afford to be wasteful. We cannot afford to waste things or squander money on things that we don't need. And so I think in India, life has always been a lot about sustainability. Of course, with the liberalization of the economy and coming in of the big brands and big businesses, and a lot of influence, particularly from European countries in America. Uh, India and Indians have also started aping a lifestyle which is not inherently theirs, and it is unsustainable. So I guess a lot of it was trying to go back to how we used to live about 1.5 or 2 decades ago. It wasn't difficult at all. I think it comes naturally to us.
Yeah.
So, when did you start converting to living more sustainably?
I think, like I said, uh, as a child, as a teenager, life was all about sustainable practices, particularly from if you talk about my grandmother's generation, the kind of lives they led was all about making things at home, DIYs, making your own soaps, making your sewing and mending your own clothes, embroidering clothes, and buying as less as possible. So they were good at making jams, jellies, pickles. They always cooked at home. So life was all about sustainability. And it was, of course, in the last 20 years that we moved away from that life. So going back to it wasn't difficult. And I started uh, making this switch about 5 to 6 years ago, when I realized that, I have started doing things which are probably not me, and they are not helping me at all. And so maybe I need to go back to all those practices that my grandmother used to practice in her time.
Yeah. So, what did you first change about your lifestyle when you were younger? What that first instigated this whole lifestyle change?
Yeah. See, when I was younger, it was all about sustainability. It was about hand-me-downs. It was about using your clothes to the fullest. It was about shopping only on special occasions or only when you truly needed something. It was about getting your clothes tailor-made. It was about mending them and not throwing them away. Then, of course, during my college years, this sort of continued, but with my first job, which was, I think, around 2007 or 8, I was under this tremendous pressure from my peer group to maybe buy from brands that they were wearing. And of course, buy more often and shop frequently and think that shopping is cool, so you need to do it. And then with the coming of online shopping in India, of course, everything just exploded. So I guess the change began with clothing. It began with fashion, because rest of the aspects of our lives, of my life at least, was still fairly slow. But of course, with the retail boom in India and with the online retail boom, we were buying too much of everything. And so, of course, this thing had spilled over to other things as well. Like, for instance, eating out unnecessarily when you know you can cook at home, or investing in home products that you don't really need, not investing, but throwing away your money.
Yeah.
But essentially, it was about fashion. That is what had led me astray, and that is what brought me back. So it started with my wardrobe primarily.
Mhm. So how did you find sustainable clothing brands to support? And do you have any tips for people starting out?
See, I'll tell you one thing. When you begin your sustainable journey, of course, you should begin with one end. So if, let's say, you're beginning with clothing, then even with clothing, you have to first understand that this switch is not about leaving fast fashion brands and then going and buying from slow fashion brands. You have to slow down your overall consumption, your overall indulgence. You have to first look at your wardrobe and analyze it and think, do I already have enough? Because if I do, then the first thing that I need to do is stop shopping completely. So you have to first slow down, look at your wardrobe, see what you have, and use it to the fullest. When you have used everything that you have to the fullest, and then you feel that you have the need for something specific, it makes sense to first look for opportunities to swap clothes. Is it possible for you to swap clothes with somebody? If you're buying something because you don't have anything to wear, everything has become tattered and everything is, of course, in bad shape and can't be swapped, then it's a good idea to go and buy something vintage or something pre loved. So it's always a better idea to first use what you have, if possible, mend, repair. Still, if you need something new, go for second hand. And then when you have done all of it and still you feel that you need something new, then you must go for something which is green, which is environmentally conscious, which has been made keeping the environment in mind. And that's when you start looking for brands. And sometimes I think you don't even, at least, for people who come from third world countries where we still have tailors, we still have embroiderers, we have craftsmen, we have handloom weavers. There are so many of such amazing people, quite accessible. It's a great idea to buy directly from the craftsmen, and they don't run brands. So they are simple people who are just making clothes, and it's a great idea to buy fabrics from them that are handmade with love and get them tailored according to your own size, your own taste, your own preferences, and use them. So I don't think the whole idea is to, I think this whole thing of leaving fast fashion brands and then jumping to slow fashion brands is not going to help us, because then we are just continuing with our consumerist practices, but we're just finding new excuses to say that no, okay, I'm not feeling as much guilty if I'm buying from this brand. I think we have to slow down our consumption, and that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good outlook because I was looking and even like organic cotton, which I know you have on your like Instagram stories. It's like it's like the best fabric. Even that takes up like so much land and so much water and all those resources
Good.
just to make. So
Yep.
I think like that's very good. And I've noticed that through like reading that we have increased our consumption so much of clothing. Thank you.
So, what are some tips um, you have to offer to people who are starting to wear, um, well, and you said not slow fashion, but more tailored and um, conscious fashion choices?
I think, like I said, it's important to see sustainability is a larger goal. I think we can first start with going slow. So, slow fashion is actually about slowing down the fashion cycles. So, a great idea is to not go by the fashion season, not go by, okay, spring, summer, I'm going to wear this, and autumn, winter, that should change. I think the whole idea should be to invest in classics that you can hear for years and years and not just for one season. So the whole this change should begin with investing in basics, in classics, the kind of clothes that you can rewear multiple times, and if you get bored, they should be versatile enough for you to restyle them. So it's a good idea to build a capsule wardrobe with a few classic accessories, with a few classic pieces, and some interesting accents thrown in so that you can mix and match and create new outfits out of your own closet every day. It's called shopping your closet. So I guess that is an approach which all of us need to take. And like I said, buying pre-loved or swapping, like today, swap parties have become so common. People are not shying away from, just because they are bored from an outfit doesn't mean that they should discard it or they should go buy something new. So instead of buying something brand new, just to bring in that novelty in your wardrobe, you can easily swap something nice with something equally good, which is new for you, but may not be brand new from the shop. So that's one thing that all of us can start doing, I feel.
Right.
Um, what are some challenges that you still face while living sustainably?
Well, I think in terms of fashion, um, I feel that because I'm so fond of Indian textiles. The sad part is that most of the Indian textiles today are made with conventional cotton, and they are also dyed in heavily toxic chemical colors. It's very hard to find textiles that are green, and they are also quite expensive, and rightfully so, because of course the demand is very less, and really handful of people are making such textiles. So that is a challenge, but I guess now uh, quite a few brands have come up with such products, and they are expensive, but then the idea is to um, buy less, choose well, and make it last. As this mantra of sustainability, that save up. Maybe if you were going to buy 5 things, maybe buy two, but buy them right. So I guess that is one thing that I'm trying to do, and those challenges will also gradually they will be overcome, I guess. And another thing which is not related to clothing, which is not so much about fashion, is that because sustainable lifestyle is also about living a zero waste life, living a plastic free life, living a life which leaves a like a lower carbon footprint. It's slightly difficult in today's world, because no matter how much you try, there's a lot of plastic, there's a lot of polythene, there is a lot of chemical ridden fruit, vegetables, inorganically grown kind of food that is a part of your life, and there's less that you can do to change it. Of course, you can take steps from your side, but it is quite challenging to live zero waste and to live sustainable.
Most definitely. Especially in today's climate. I can definitely see that.
Yes.
It's hard to have to go out of your way. It sometimes can seem inconveniencing, especially even with the fashion. And I
Yeah.
think that's
And
Sorry.
I used to shop from the bulk stores, my grocery, but that's no longer safe because you don't know where the bulk is coming from, and so many hands may have touched it. And it's become mandatory to use gloves, disposable gloves in those stores. And every time you go shopping, and if you're going to dispose a pair of plastic gloves, then that just defeats the purpose. So of course, with this pandemic, I guess it's become a bigger challenge.
Right. Especially with those medical equipment that you're speaking of.
Absolutely.
So, how did your lifestyles change to a more sustainable lifestyle after you switched just fashion?
I think it makes me feel lighter and sort of happier because there was a time when I started when I was active on the Instagram page, and a lot of brands used to send me their clothes because they wanted me to wear them and share those pictures on my page so that they could get some promotion. I ended up having so many clothes in my wardrobe that every time I opened it, it felt like everything would fall on me. And somewhere, that used to feel like a burden. Oh my God, I have so much. I don't know how to take care of it. I don't know what to do with so much. I can't possibly use so much of it. Should I give it away? If I give it away, who should I give it to? So on and so forth. So I think it started from there when I was getting bogged down with so much that that I was owning, that I started understanding that it's important to own very less and travel light in life in general. Keep it light.
Yeah, I think so. Both Kavi and I, we like move into our dorm rooms because we both go to boarding school. And I feel like one realization I have like every year is just how much stuff I have. Because when we move out, it's like boxes and boxes of things. And I just like, I don't need anything. So
I know.
it's like, I think that's a big realization I've had. So I'm working towards just like keeping my pieces like well, and then also just like trading with my friends.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was going to say, Auntie, it really reminds me of, I've studied Jainism, and it really reminds me of those core values of less and, freedom of items and freedom of soul because of that. And so uh,
Absolutely.
it's interesting to see how the culture really captures that and its values.
Mhm. So what are some of your favorite types of like zero waste stores to shop at? So this would be like more like grocery, more everyday product use.
Currently I'm living in Dubai, and it's been a year since I moved here. Before this, I was in India, and I feel that it's tougher in Dubai to live zero waste. It's slightly harder here because everything over here is uh, you get everything packaged. In India, because we have an informal kind of an economy and informal retail, so you have a lot of vendors on the roadsides who are always selling a lot of fruits, vegetables, uh, packaging free, and you can just take your own bag and buy from them. And similarly, for everything in India, there are options where you can take your own containers and buy your milk or milk products, etc. In Dubai, that's a bit difficult. But I try to buy from a couple of. This is in terms of course, grocery and these things. But I don't think there are any particular stores like that are my favorite. I haven't really found any ideal stores, not in Dubai at least. I don't know about other countries like Europe or European countries or maybe USA. I don't know if they have great stores like that, but at least in the UAE, it's been a bit difficult. But there are a couple of online services that do deliver without packaging, so I'm relying on them. I think the favorite thing to do is not to buy from a particular store or from a brand. I guess the idea is to try and shop local, as much local as possible, because when you're buying local, you are ensuring that the carbon footprint behind that is lower, because of course it's not been transported from somewhere. And it's to try and buy as much uh, stuff packaging free as possible. Also, in terms of fashion, like I said, I would prefer to actually buy directly from craftsmen and directly from and get it tailored. So I I know that in the first world countries this can be harder, this can be difficult because it's a lot of things are not available locally. But it's a good idea to go to smaller flea markets or farmers markets where some really small businesses, whether they are into, and there are fashion labels also, small fashion labels, people who are making things at home, they would come and they would sell their products at such small flea markets and small exhibitions that happen on the weekends. So it's a great idea to shop from them. And in the wake of the pandemic, if that's not happening, then it's great to maybe buy from some services, local services that keep stuff from the local designers or local makers. So I think the approach is to find as much local produce and local design and locally manufactured stuff as possible. And that's going to be different for different countries. So again, if you're talking about brands and stores, then it becomes about big chains, and buying from big chains is somewhere not sustainable.
Yes, for sure. So what are some traits you look for when you're looking for clothing, and example in the textile market? What are some things that tell you that this is sustainable, this is not sustainable? And what are some features that actually set it apart?
See, I am a big lover of cotton because I come from a really hot country. India has a climate which is mostly hot, and even in Dubai, we experience a long and harsh summer. So I prefer cotton, and I prefer clothes that are handmade. Either, of course, it's very difficult to find clothes that are hand woven, also hand embroidered, or hand printed, or dyed in natural colors, but I try to look for at least one trait in the textile. Either it should be hand woven, or it should at least have a hand printing technique that's been used on it, or it should be hand embroidered. And I try to stay away from synthetic fibers. Like polyester is a complete no no for me. Even though polyester is recyclable, but I think it's a really dangerous fabric because it does not break down, and after a point it's not possible to recycle it. It's not good for the skin because your skin doesn't breathe in polyester. It's also carcinogenic because it's like wearing plastic, and close contact with plastic, at least in hot climates, can be really dangerous, and it can lead to cancer in the long run. So maybe for people who are into sports, etc., special clothing made out of polyester and its blends is probably a necessity. But otherwise, I feel that polyester is it's a complete no-no for me. And all other fibers that are not natural are a complete no-no for me. Even if it's a recycled product, I would stay away from it because my skin doesn't feel very happy in it. And it's always a great idea to look for natural fibers, provided they have been grown in a sustainable way. So it's great to look for either organic cotton or for fibers made out of hemp. Hemp blends are also great. Even silks are great if they've been made ethically. But of course, silks are more heaty, and if you're in a hot country, then silks can be difficult to wear. So for me, my preferred cotton, my fabric is either linen, and linen is even better because it's more long lasting, it's easier to maintain. So linen and cotton are my favorites, but organically grown and preferably handmade.
So how have you been able to incorporate your culture into your clothing?
I think it wasn't difficult because in India, cultural clothing is still a big part of our lives, at least for the women. The men may have stopped wearing cultural clothing and it's become occasion wear for them. But for most women, barring like a small segment of urban women who are maybe upper middle class or upper class, they may have moved away from the cultural clothing. But for most women in India, cultural clothing is a part of our lives, and we don't have to make an effort to stick to it. The only thing that I probably had to do was to maybe look at a more contemporary version of my cultural clothing. Uh, like an Indian contemporary or like a Desi contemporary, I would say, because when I say Desi, it is inclusive of Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, the, the entire Indian subcontinent. And because we have a shared heritage, I guess Desi is a more inclusive word. So I think that Desi contemporary is what I was looking for. And in India, it is a great time for Desi contemporary wearers because a lot of designers and quite a few brands have come up with great ideas that bring this culture and uh, modern times together.
And
So
how has that been in Dubai? You said you're living in now, so
I haven't shopped for anything in a year, so I
oh,
can't say that. And in Dubai, I don't shy away from wearing my cultural clothing because I feel that that's who I am. So I quite comfortably wear saris and I wear my kurtas and my dupattas and all Indian clothes. And honestly, Dubai is a country, is a city that is multicultural, and here the Indian population or the Desi population is larger than the local population. So here there are so many Indians that it's not odd to wear your cultural clothing at all. In fact, I don't find it odd at all. Even if I travel abroad, like I went to London last year, I wore saris in London, and people, in fact, they like it. They come to you and they also give you compliments because you're wearing something which is unique, which is different, which is not something which has been bought out of a chain store, and it's not something that everybody around you is wearing. It is definitive. It is. It speaks a lot about traditions, about centuries of culture, and I enjoy that. So
wonderful. So we really liked your articles about how nature inspires the way that you dress. So can you talk a little bit more about your journey with that?
In India, actually, we in the subcontinent we have 6 seasons. Unlike the West, where they say that they have 4 seasons. In India, we have 6 seasons, and we have a beautiful spring followed by a summer and then monsoon. So we have specific rain months in the monsoon, which is going on now. And then, of course, there comes the autumn kind of phase. We don't have a fall in India. There's nothing called fall in India. Leaves fall actually during spring. So we have a small autumn kind of a season, and then there is the winter, and then there is extreme winter in some parts. So in India, lifestyle is attuned to these seasons, and inadvertently, all of us, our palate, the food palate, and wardrobes change according to the season. So if you synchronize your life with the seasons, then you are automatically going to be in sync with nature. And if it's spring, then automatically you feel like wearing flowers and floral prints. And then if it's monsoon, then because of the dark skies, gray skies, you feel like wearing more bright, brighter colors. If it's winter, then again, you feel like wearing brighter colors in the dreary weather, and so on and so forth. So I guess again, it's been a cultural thing for me. And all in India, we always, we had these big trunks in our homes, and winter clothes were stored in them, hand knitted sweaters, etc. And every time winter was approaching, they were brought out, and they were, of course, they were air dried, and then we would start wearing them. So it's a natural thing, I guess. And I've just tried to stay true to my culture. Just because today there are so many brands in India who are selling polyester clothing and it is supposedly cool, I'm not going to go and wear it because polyester is a fabric which is not suitable for the Indian climate. And I think that has been the important thing for me, to dress according to the climate and the season and the weather. So if you do that, automatically you are inspired by nature.
Yeah, I think like we in the Western culture, I feel like we definitely tend to not want to change our lifestyles. Like I noticed that we always just like eat fruit all year round, even if it's not in season, or like we just tend to like eat salads all year round, even if it's not like possible to. It's like if we have to like ship it from like California, we'll still do it just to have it there. So.
Yeah.
So, what are some topics in the world of sustainability that you recommend learning more about?
Uh, I think it's a great idea to try and understand more about how we can get closer to zero waste lifestyles, not just in terms of our wardrobes, but also in terms of the food we eat or the household products that we use, etc. Because everything right now that we get uh, is, if it's grown, then if it's farmed, then it's mostly genetically modified. It's grown out of genetically modified seeds, and those kind of seeds need a lot of pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers. Again, so many chemicals. Even the even the cosmetics that we use, or even the cleaning products for the cleaning of the home, the floor cleaner or the dishwasher liquid or the detergent powder, or even just the toiletries like a shampoo or a hand wash, or all of these things are so full of chemicals, and it's harmful for not just our health, because of course, it's going to touch your skin every day, but it's also really toxic for our ocean life and for the planet, because all of it is goes into the drain, and through the drains and the sewage it goes and gets released in the ocean. So all those toxic chemicals, we are all releasing them every day from our homes. And so that's something that all of us need to read up more about and become more conscious, so that every time we are shopping, we read the food labels and we read mm, you know, sort of, these the labels of all these products. So that's very important.
Right.
I guess reading, more than reading literature, it's important to become conscious of what you're buying and then read what's written behind the product. And of course, then to read about all of those ingredients and understand what we should buy and what we shouldn't.
Right. Awesome, Auntie. Thank you so much for joining us. Our time's coming to an end, so I just wanted to make sure we had a proper ending. All of this is helping not only us, but everyone else, because our whole purpose is we're wanting to educate others on the topic. So, and we're going along on the journey with you. So, I can't say I've been completely sustainable, and that just comes from just lack of education.
Nobody is completely sustainable. We are all on a journey and it's not perfect. I guess, there's a great quote that most of the sustainable practitioners share, and they say and they relate to, is that we don't need 10 people doing zero waste or living sustainably fully. We need a lot of people doing this imperfectly, because if we do it, then someday we are going to reach a stage where a lot of us will be doing small things, but they'll add up to bigger results, because perfection is something that nobody can achieve, but that shouldn't stop us from doing whatever we can.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you again, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I wish you the same.
Thank you.